It was late evening before he remembered the post. He'd left the house yesterday in a tremendous hurry because he thought he was going to be late for Lauren's train and didn't want to leave her stranded at the station. The postman had met him a few yards from the front door and handed him the mail. Without bothering to glance at it, he'd shoved it into his coat pocket and then, absorbed in discussing the difficulties of the marriage, he'd forgotten all about it. Lauren was loading the dishwasher. "Where did you put my coat, darling?" he called downstairs. "Utility room." As soon as he lifted it off the peg, he knew. River mud, and mixed in with that, a whiff of stale tobacco. He thrust his hand into the right pocket and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. It was immediately obvious what had happened. He'd wrapped his own coat round the boy because it was heavier, and that was the one he'd handed into the ambulance. He couldn't put off trying to get it back because there were spare keys in the pocket, and oh God, yes, his address on the envelopes. Admittedly, the boy wasn't in much of a state to contemplate burglary, but you didn't know. You didn't know who or what he was. He could be a drug addict desperate for cash. "I seem to have got the wrong coat, darling. I'll have to go to the hospital." "Can't it wait?" "Well, no, not really. There were letters in it." He didn't want to alarm her by mentioning the keys. It was only a short drive to the General, but then he had to spend 15 minutes trying to find somewhere to park. Visiting hour. Cars crammed bumper to bumper in every legitimate and illegitimate space. The casualty department was packed. On a bench near the door, a boy with a torn ear and blood trickling down his neck stared around with a kind of blank belligerence. A short distance away, a young boy, his voice shooting up into registers he never intended, was trying to calm down a middle-aged woman. "Hey, Mum, don't let him see you upset." "Upset? I'll give him bloody upset." On a trolley nearby, an old man with a miner's blue scars on the backs of his hands gasped his life away. "Ward 18, a nurse said, raising her head, briefly between disasters. He walked the length of the corridor to Ward 18 and stopped by the nurse's station. An old man in a wheelchair at the entrance to one of the wards grabbed a nurse's behind as she walked past. "Now then, Jimmy," she said, "you be a good lad now." The old man cackled in demented glee and pawed another nurse. "They'll trank the life out of you, old son," Tom thought, "if you don't behave." A tall, rangy woman with strands of ultrafine hair escaping from a knot on the top of her head, glasses dangling from a gold chain, and a general air of equine goodwill, squeaked up to him on rubber-soled shoes. "Tom, hello." Mary Peters. He couldn't have wished for anyone better. "Hello, Mary. I'm looking for an attempted suicide you had brought in this morning. Quite a young lad." She twinkled at him. "Oh, yes, I know. One of yours?" "No, this isn't a professional visit, actually." He felt embarrassed. "I'm the one who fished him out. Only in the process he ended up with my coat, and I got his." "Yes, we found your coat and the letters. You're lucky," she said, leading the way down the corridor. The nurse read the name and the address on the envelopes and assumed it was his name. "You were very nearly admitted." She stopped in front of a door. "Fortunately, he came round in time. His name's Ian Wilkinson." She tapped her throat. "And he won't feel like talking." What did he take? Temazepam? About 10, he thinks. The young man lying on the bed stared at Tom, the colour draining from his face. Tom was puzzled by the reaction, and by his own sense that he knew this boy. Of course, he dealt with hundreds of disturbed young people in the course of a year. Still, he generally remembered them. He wasn't good with faces, but he remembered names. Ian Wilkinson. It meant nothing. "This is Dr. Seymour," Mary said, "who rescued you. I don't suppose you—" Her voice died away as she registered the atmosphere in the room. "Well," she said after a slight pause, "I'll leave you to it then." At the door she turned. "Coat in the locker, Tom, when you're ready." "Thanks," he said, shifting his gaze in time to see the door close. The boy was hauling himself up the bed as if his first impulse were to escape. His colour hadn't returned. "You don't recognise me, do you?" he said. "I suppose I ought to find that reassuring." "You were covered in mud." "No, I mean before." His voice was hoarse. "When I was 10. Do you remember you—" Oh my God, Tom thought. He sat down heavily on the chair beside the bed. Danny Miller.